Really consequential moment today. The Supreme Court finding that he should still be on the ballot, will still be on the ballot, has not been disqualified. And again, they found the exit ramp that many thought they were looking for. It was apparent.
Yeah, absolutely, Laura and Paula, and they're doing this on the eve of Super Tuesday, which makes sense, and I guess gives us some sense that the Supreme Court is looking at the political calendar, not just the legal calendar. All right, Laura and Paula, thank you. Let me go. Joan Biskupik is on set with us, as well as Dana Bash and Ellie Honig. Joan, your sense of this?
Well, first of all, it's 9-0 to reverse the Colorado Supreme Court. So former President Donald Trump will remain on the ballot and other state ballots. But the justices actually split on how far to go. The majority decision, written as a per curiam, likely by the Chief Justice of the United States because it's unsigned, gives much more authority to Congress about when someone should be disqualified. And Justices Barrett, and then the three liberals write separately. And what's key here is Justices... I'm listening to two different things. Excuse me for a second.
It happens.
I was listening to two different conversations, but I'll listen to ours first.
Please.
Okay, this is the important part, that even though they came out and gave us something unanimous that's very useful in the political scheme, especially for tomorrow, for Super Tuesday, it shows how divided the Supreme Court still is, because the three liberals broke off and said, you majority are going too far in terms of how you would dictate the rules for future disqualifications. And again, it was the three liberals specifically writing on this: Justice Sotomayor, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and our newest Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, Justice Barrett, one of Donald Trump's appointees, the third one, in fact, split off a bit also, but not joining the liberals.
Interesting. And Ellie, I just want to read, it looks like page 13 of this. It says, for the reasons given, responsibility for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates rests with Congress and not the states.
Right.
The judgment of the Colorado Supreme Court therefore cannot stand. So they're saying essentially that Congress has to make this decision whether there are insurrectionists who need to be kept off of ballots. Is that essentially what they're saying?
Essentially what they're saying is it's up to Congress to tell us.
Welcome. This is a doozy. This drops on my lap right before the stream starts. So I just briefly wanted to kind of cover this. This is not going to be a long segment. Supreme Court coming out ruling that Donald Trump cannot be kept off of any state ballot. The ruling came through a case brought by the Colorado state, but the ruling applies to all 50 states. And you can hear the sort of disappointment of a Hail Mary. You ever watch football? Now, if you don't watch football, you may not get this analogy, but you're watching football. It's your team. They're down, few seconds left. You know it's going to be a Hail Mary. The defense knows it's going to be a Hail Mary. And you're hoping. You're at home. You're biting your nails. And the ball goes up. All your hopes is in that ball, and it falls to the ground. And that feeling you get once that Hail Mary hits the ground and you see the clock is at double zeros, that's the feeling that all of the news outlets on the liberal side are giving about this ruling, which is now at the same time they say, they admit this was a Hail Mary. They admit that this was a long shot, but no matter the long shot, no matter the Hail Mary, the people who want that side that's using the Hail Mary to win put all their hopes in it, and when it falls through, they look and sound like this. Let's listen to a little bit more of this, and then we'll get to the regular scheduled show.
How this works. So if Congress had, let's say 50 years ago, Congress had passed a law saying we're going to let the states do it so long as they abide by due process, then what Colorado did would have been fine. But Congress has done essentially nothing in the 150 years since the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. Now, I want to make sure people understand this. It's a very important feature of this decision. There is no substantive discussion in here by the Supreme Court of whether Donald Trump did or did not engage in insurrection.
Interesting.
There is no conversation about what the meaning of his words at the rally were or what happened inside the Capitol.
You notice
any of Donald Trump's
every time they have a ruling. They do this with the Fannie Willis case down in Atlanta too. Every time there's good news for Donald Trump, they always make it a point to tell the audience this in no way bears on the propaganda piece we've been pushing for several years. That's essentially what they're saying. Hey, audience, this in no way diminishes our propaganda campaign around January 6th all these years. Okay, so don't make the connection. They make it a point to do that, just like he does here, and it's always ironic and curious to me.
Trump's actions. That's not what the Supreme Court has done here. That's not what the Supreme Court typically does. This is a procedural, legalistic decision. And essentially, if I had to boil it down to one sentence, it would be, it's up to Congress, not the individual
They didn't
states.
want a big messy
Oh, who knew that?
situation where all
Who
the
could have
states
guessed
go here
that?
and there and that sort of thing.
The word I circled in this decision is, quote, patchwork. They said, we don't want a patchwork where one state's doing one thing and another state's doing another.
But you know Donald Trump better than most, covered him for many
little,
years,
yeah.
many years.
Oh, yeah,
as
that means
as a
you know him.
reporter, covering him as a politician and as
there we
a
go.
figure who takes things and will turn them the way that he wants America and the world to see them.
Turn them the way.
I will be
Instead of
shocked
just saying, given his
if
point of
Donald
view,
Trump doesn't,
and
as
people
soon as he
believe-
can, get out there and argue not only that the Supreme Court is behind him, but
They're
he's probably
so
going to argue,
intellectually weak.
even though there's nothing in here that specifically says, as Ellie so importantly pointed out, anything about what happened on January 6th. It's just procedural about whether the states or Congress have a right. He will claim victory, and I'm guessing he will do it.
So they're already preemptively trying to play defense because they're saying that he's gonna say that somehow this is a blow towards their case of January 6th, and they want to make it say, yeah, that, that's coming, and it's not true. It is such a they are so protective of certain things. Russiagate is another one. But this January 6th is one where no, they're very protective of this, this charade called January 6th and the prosecution of it. But let's continue.
In a more broad way than this decision actually says.
Yeah, and Joan, there are countless Americans out there who believe that the Supreme Court just bailed out Donald Trump here, and that they're going to bail him. They might bail him out again on the immunity issue, which I know a lot of folks feel like that's not going to happen. But the fact that can got kicked down the road means that the January 6th trial may not happen in federal court.
And
so
what you're referring to there is the fact that the justices have scheduled.
I don't understand how in the way that they talk, how can they say this is not political persecution? In the hunger that's in their tone about getting to a case that they can put him in jail for because they can't beat him in the polls. Just recently they've been Morning Joe. We're going to cover it. Morning Joe bringing up a poll where, man, he's down 4 points in a brand new poll. Like, even their latest propaganda is falling short. It's not convincing anybody. I'll give this a few more minutes, see if they make a couple of good points here.
Scheduled an oral argument for the week of April 22nd on whether Donald Trump should be immune from criminal prosecution for election subversion. But let me just tell you what concerned the three liberals about this ruling and how far the majority went.
Oh, yeah, we want to know
just
that.
reading it now,
Even though it's 9-0 still.
their concern was that the majority went further than they needed for this particular case and essentially is over favoring Donald Trump. Ultimately, under the guise of providing a more, quote, complete explanation for the judgment, the majority resolves many unsettled questions about Section 3. That's Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the anti-insurrectionist ban. It forecloses judicial enforcement of that provision, such as might occur when a party is prosecuted by an
they want to get him so bad
insurrectionist and raises defense on that score. The language hints of what's happening with Donald Trump right now. So I think that's their concern, is that the fuller majority has gone further. Now, this is a concurrence, just so you know. So the all 9 have signed on to the basic principle, reversing the Colorado Supreme Court and keeping him on the ballot.
Which is all that matters is reversing it. So there you go, folks.